I stood backstage at the National Convention Center, watching through the gap in the curtains as my mother and sister frantically showed their IDs to security. The guard was shaking his head, pointing to their names on a list, or rather, the absence of their names. I'm her mother, Mom's voice carried across the lobby, shrill with entitlement. That's my daughter receiving the Presidential Medal of Excellence. You have to let me in. The guard remained unmoved. Ma'am, your name isn't on the guest list. The recipient only allocated 2 seats, and they're registered to other individuals. I smiled. In my previous life, I had given those seats to them. They never showed up. This time, I'd given them to Dr. Morrison, my mentor, and to Sarah Chen, the girl from the children's home who'd shared her lunch with me when I had nothing. The 2 people who had actually believed in me. 15 minutes until the ceremony begins, a coordinator whispered, touching my elbow. The president's ready when you are, Miss Thompson. Miss Thompson. Not the family name anymore. I'd changed it legally 6 months ago, another small revenge they didn't even know about yet. But they were about to know everything. The cameras were already rolling, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, every major network. The Presidential Medal of Excellence was only awarded to 3 people under 30 each year, and this year's ceremony was special. The president himself had insisted on presenting mine personally after reading my research paper on quantum computing applications and climate modeling, the paper that would change everything, the same paper that, in my previous life, my sister Lisa had tried to steal. I closed my eyes, and I could still feel it. The moment of death. The betrayal that had been so complete, so absolute, that something in the universe had taken pity on me and sent me back. 26 years old. That's how old I was when I died the first time. It wasn't dramatic. No car crash, no terminal illness, just stress, exhaustion, and a heart that finally gave up after years of breaking. I'd been found in my cramped studio apartment, slumped over my laptop, the acceptance email for the Presidential Medal still glowing on the screen. The email I'd been staring at for hours, trying to decide if I should tell my family, wondering if this achievement would finally be enough, if this would finally make them see me. The paramedics said I'd been dead for almost 2 days before my landlord found me. 2 days, and not a single person had noticed I was gone. My mother didn't cry at the funeral. I watched from somewhere above, or maybe it was a dream, or maybe the universe was making a point, as she stood dry-eyed beside my cheap casket, already calculating. Lisa stood next to her, playing the grieving sister for the handful of colleagues who'd shown up, but I could see her fingers flying across her phone screen, under cover of her black clutch. She was texting Brandon, my former colleague, the one who'd always hated that I was smarter than him, the one who'd been trying to get access to my research for months. 3 days after my funeral, Lisa held a press conference. She was wearing my clothes. I recognized the blazer I'd saved 3 months for, and she was presenting my research as her own. The research I'd spent 7 years developing, living on ramen and hope. She called it continuing her brilliant sister's legacy. The media ate it up. Poor Lisa Thompson stepping into her deceased sister's shoes, making sure her groundbreaking work wasn't lost. She accepted my presidential medal. She gave interviews about my research. She signed a multi-million-dollar contract with a tech consortium using my innovations. And my mother stood beside her the whole time, beaming with pride she'd never shown me when I was alive. From my nowhere place, that space between death and whatever comes next, I screamed. I raged. I begged the universe for one more chance. And then I woke up. I was 16 again. I woke up gasping in my childhood bedroom, the attic room, really, the one with the slanted ceiling that I could barely stand up in. The one they'd given me when Lisa complained that having to share a room with me was stifling her creativity. For a moment, I thought it was just a vivid nightmare. Then I saw the date on my phone. September 3rd, 10 years before my death. I had been given 10 years back. A full decade to change everything. The first week I could barely function. I kept crying at odd moments, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of having a second chance. I'd touch my face in the mirror, marveling at how young I looked, how alive. I'd put my hand over my heart just to feel it beating steadily, reliably, the way it hadn't in those final, exhausted years. But the tears stopped when I came downstairs that first Saturday morning and remembered why those years had been so exhausting in the first place. Finally, Mom said, not looking up from her coffee. I need you to clean the whole house today. We're having guests tomorrow. Not good morning, not how did you sleep, just orders. Lisa breezed in, fresh from her morning run, the personal trainer runs that cost $200 a session, paid for by parents who told me we couldn't afford my AP exam fees. Oh, good, you're up, she said, grabbing the breakfast smoothie I'd made for myself. I need you to help me with my college essay. It's due Monday. Help you, meaning write it for her, just like I'd done before. My father appeared in the doorway, already dressed for golf. Don't forget you're watching your sister tonight. Your mother and I have dinner reservations. Lisa was 18, I was 16, but I was the babysitter. It all came flooding back. Every single slight, every casual cruelty, every moment of being invisible in my own family. And now I remembered how much worse it would get. In 2 months, I'd win the state science fair. They wouldn't come. In 3 months, I'd be offered early admission to MIT. They'd make me turn it down because families should stay together, and Lisa needed help adjusting to community college. In 1 year, I'd publish my first paper. They'd never read it. In 5 years, I'd be working 3 jobs to support myself through graduate school while sending money home because Dad's business investment, gambling, had failed. Money that would somehow always end up paying for Lisa's lifestyle. And in 10 years, I'd die alone, and they'd profit from my death. Not this time. This time, I knew exactly what was coming. I knew every mistake I'd made, every moment I'd bent, every time I'd chosen their comfort over my own well-being. This time, I was going to be selfish. This time, I was going to let them show me exactly who they were, and I was going to document every moment, build my case, prepare my escape. And most importantly, this time when I won the Presidential Medal of Excellence, I was going to make sure the whole world was watching when they revealed their true nature. The next 10 years were a study in patience. The hardest part wasn't the abuse. I'd lived through that before, and knowing it was temporary made it bearable. The hardest part was pretending I didn't know what was coming. Playing the role of the hopeful, naive daughter who kept believing her family would eventually love her. But I played it perfectly. I still cleaned the house, still wrote Lisa's papers, though I made sure they were mediocre enough that she never got too far. Still smiled through every missed recital, every forgotten birthday, every casual comment about how I was the plain one or the serious one or not as fun as Lisa. But this time, I was gathering evidence. Every time Mom forgot to pick me up from school and I had to walk home in the rain, I documented it. Photos of me soaked, screenshots of the ignored texts. Every time they took money from my part-time job to borrow and never paid it back, I kept receipts. Every time they promised to come to one of my academic ceremonies and didn't show up, I saved the programs with my name on them, took photos of the empty seats where they should have been. I created a cloud storage account they didn't know about. I kept everything. More importantly, I used my foreknowledge strategically. I remembered which stocks would boom, which tech startups would succeed. At 16, I couldn't invest much, but I could do small things. I started a blog about tech trends that attracted a following. I entered competitions online that offered cash prizes. I tutored kids from wealthy families who paid well and whose parents asked me about my own future. Slowly, carefully, I built a nest egg. Nothing my family could see or take, but enough to secure my independence when I needed it. I also made different choices about people. In my first life, I'd been so desperate for my family's approval that I'd never built real, friendships. This time, I recognized the people who'd actually cared. Sarah from the children's home, who I met while volunteering. I stayed close to her. Dr. Morrison, who would become my mentor, I sought him out early. Marcus Webb, the teaching assistant who'd tried to warn me about Brandon's plagiarizing tendencies, I listened this time. I built a network of people who actually saw me, and I let my family keep ignoring me. When I won the state science fair at 16, I told them about it the day of the ceremony. "Oh, honey, that's today," Mom said, looking at her calendar. "I have a hair appointment, but that's wonderful." They didn't come. I have a photo of me holding my trophy, alone in a crowd of families, smiling despite the tears in my eyes. It was the first piece of evidence I'd use later. When I got early admission to MIT, I told them at dinner. Dad barely looked up. "You'll have to defer," he said. "Lisa needs help settling into college, and we need you here." But this time, I didn't defer. I called MIT's financial aid office. I applied for every scholarship, every grant. I worked 4 jobs that summer, and in the fall, I left. "You're being selfish," Mom said when I announced I was going. "We need you here," Dad added. Lisa just stared at me with narrowed eyes. She'd never seen me defy them before. "I'm going," I said simply. And I did. They barely called me that first year. When they did, it was always to ask for something: money, help with Lisa's assignments, my expertise on things they could have Googled, never to ask how I was doing. I documented every call. The years passed, and I changed everything that mattered while keeping my real growth hidden. In my first life, I'd been so eager to prove myself that I'd published early and often, desperate for validation. Some of those papers had been good but premature. This time, I waited. I refined. I worked with Dr. Morrison to develop my quantum computing research carefully, systematically, building towards something that would be undeniable. I also protected my work obsessively. I remembered Brandon, the colleague who tried to steal my research. I avoided him. When he joined Dr. Morrison's lab anyway, I fed him false leads, let him think I was working on dead-end projects. I kept my real research encrypted, backed up in multiple locations with timestamps and witnesses. I remembered how Lisa had accessed my laptop. This time, every device I owned had biometric locks and remote wipes enabled. Meanwhile, I watched my family from a distance. They expected me to fail. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas I came home, there were little comments. "How's school? Are you keeping up?" Translation: "We assume you're struggling." "Have you thought about what you'll do if this doesn't work out?" Translation: "We expect you to fail and come crawling back." Lisa had transferred from community college to a mediocre 4-year university, majoring in communications, which seemed to mostly involve posting on Instagram. Mom and Dad still funded her fully: apartment, car, spending money. Meanwhile, they'd ask me when I was going to start contributing to the family since I was doing so well at that fancy school. I was living on instant noodles and working overnight shifts at a lab. They thought I was being supported by scholarships and didn't ask questions. Lisa tried to get information about my research sometimes. "So, what are you even doing at MIT?" I could never understand all that nerdy stuff. "Just computer things," I'd say vaguely. Pretty boring, actually. She'd lose interest immediately. By the time I was 23, I had my PhD. They didn't come to my defense. "It's just a formality," Mom said when I called to tell them the date. "We'll celebrate when you're home for Christmas." We never celebrated. By 24, I had my breakthrough: the quantum computing algorithm that would revolutionize climate modeling. I could see 10 years into the future now, could predict climate patterns with unprecedented accuracy. It was worth billions in agricultural planning alone, not to mention disaster prevention. I published carefully, strategically. I built a team I could trust. I filed patents with my name only, locked down tighter than Fort Knox. And then, I waited for the recognition I knew would come. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. "Dr. Thompson?" The voice was formal, official. "This is Kat Williams from the Presidential Medal of Excellence Committee." My heart stopped. Even knowing it was coming, hearing it again after experiencing it once before, it was surreal. "Yes," I managed my taste. "We're pleased to inform you that you've been selected as one of this year's 3 recipients of the Presidential Medal of Excellence. The President has specifically requested to present your medal personally, given the potential impact of your research. We understand this is short notice, but would you be available for the ceremony in 6 weeks?" 6 weeks? In my previous life, I'd had 2 months to prepare. They'd moved it up this time, probably due to the President's schedule. "Yes," I said. "Absolutely." "Wonderful. We'll be sending you information about the ceremony, including 2 guest passes. This year's event will be nationally televised and held at the National Convention Center. We're expecting significant media coverage." 2 guest passes. Last time, I'd given them to my mother and Lisa without a second thought. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time just thinking. In my previous life, I'd called my family immediately. I'd been so excited, so hopeful. Mom, Dad, I won! The presidential medal! The president himself is presenting it. Will you come? My mother had sounded distracted. That's wonderful, honey. When is it? 6 weeks from Saturday. I know it's far, but I'll pay for your flights, your hotel, everything. Let me check the calendar and get back to you. She never got back to me. The day of the ceremony, I'd called her 3 times. The calls went to voicemail. I'd assumed there was an emergency, that they were on their way, that their phones had died, they hadn't come. Afterward, after I'd stood alone at the reception, after I'd accepted congratulations from strangers while scanning the crowd for familiar faces, after I'd gone back to my hotel room and cried myself sick, I'd finally reached them. Oh, honey, was that today? Mom had said. Lisa had a job interview and we thought it was important to support her. You understand, don't you? These things are so much harder for her than they are for you. You're naturally successful. She needs us more. Lisa's job interview had been for a receptionist position at a dentist's office. She didn't get it, but they'd chosen it over watching me receive the highest honor a young scientist could earn. I'd made excuses for them then. I'd told myself it was a misunderstanding. I'd swallowed my hurt and moved on because that's what I always did. And 3 years later, I'd died. And Lisa had taken everything. This time, I made a different call. Dr. Morrison, I have news. My mentor's whoop of joy was everything my family's reaction should have been. I knew it. Didn't I tell you? That research was going to change the world and now everyone's going to know it. They're giving me 2 guest passes, I said. Your family will be so proud. I paused. I'd like to give one to you, if you'll come. And one to Sarah Chen. Do you remember her? I've mentioned her before. There was a long silence. Dr. Morrison was sharp. He'd picked up over the years that my relationship with my family was strained, though I'd never told him the full story. Are you sure? He asked carefully, Ben. This is a big moment. Your family didn't come to my PhD defense, I said quietly. Didn't come to my undergraduate graduation. Didn't come to any of the academic ceremonies I've ever had. I doubt they'd come to this one either, even if I invited them. Then they're fools, he said fiercely, and yes, I would be honored to be there. Sarah cried when I called her. Really? Me? But I'm nobody. You're the person who shared her lunch with me when I had nothing. I said, Haas, you're the person who believed I could be more than what my family said I was. You're not nobody, Sarah. You're my friend. As for my family, I sent them an email. Not a call, an email. Dear Mom, Dad, and Lisa, I wanted to let you know that I've won the Presidential Medal of Excellence for my research. The ceremony is in 6 weeks at the National Convention Center. It will be televised nationally. I thought you might like to know. Best, Evelyn. Not love. Not an invitation, just information. My mother's response came 3 days later. That's nice, honey. We're so proud. Talk soon. No follow-up, no questions about the date or time, no request for tickets. Lisa didn't respond at all. Dad sent a thumbs-up emoji. Perfect. The 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind of interviews and preparation. The media attention was even more intense than my first life. The Presidential Medal Committee had really played up the youngest winner ever angle, and my research was hitting at exactly the right moment. Climate change was dominating the news cycle, and here I was with actual practical solutions. CNN wanted an interview. So did the New York Times, NPR, BBC. I said yes to all of them. Tell us about your background, the CNN anchor asked. What inspired you to pursue this field? In my previous life, I would have demurred, given bland answers. This time, I was honest. I grew up in a family that didn't value education, I said. Or at least didn't value mine. I was expected to support my older sister, to make myself small so she could shine. But I loved learning. I loved the purity of mathematics, the clarity of code. When the world didn't make sense, when people didn't make sense, science did. The anchor leaned forward. That must have been difficult. It taught me to rely on myself, I said, in assist, to document my work carefully, to build support networks outside of family. Some of the most important people in my life are people who chose to be there, not people who were obligated by blood. The interview went viral. Apparently, I'd struck a chord with others who'd felt overlooked by their families. My mother called for the first time in 6 months. Evelyn, I saw you on CNN. Why did you say those things about us? People are asking questions. What things? I asked in Oclay. I didn't mention you at all. You implied, people think, she sputtered. You made it sound like we don't support you. Don't you? I asked. Silence. The ceremony is this Saturday, I said. It's at 2 p.m. at the National Convention Center. It'll be on every major network. You're welcome to watch. I hung up before she could respond. Saturday dawned clear and bright. I'd barely slept. Even knowing what was coming, even having planned for this moment for years, I was nervous. This was it, the culmination of everything. I put on the dress I'd bought for this occasion. Deep navy blue, elegant and professional, nothing like the borrowed clothes I'd worn last time. I did my own hair and makeup, taking my time. Dr. Morrison had offered to have his wife help, but I wanted to do this myself. This was my victory, mine alone. Sarah met me for breakfast. She was wearing a yellow dress that made her look like sunshine. I'm so proud of you, she said, squeezing my hand. You did this. You really did it. We did it, I corrected. I wouldn't have made it without people like you believing in me. Have you heard from your family? I checked my phone. No messages, no calls. No, I said, and I don't expect to. That was a lie. I expected them to show up. Not because they'd been invited, but because they'd seen the media coverage and realized what they were missing. I'd been dropping breadcrumbs in every interview, mentions of the nationally televised ceremony, the president's personal attendance, the significance of the award. They'd come. They always came when there was something in it for them. They just wouldn't get in. We arrived at the National Convention Center 3 hours early. The security was intense. Secret Service everywhere, metal detectors, credentials checks. My guest passes got Dr. Morrison and Sarah through without issue. They were whisked off to the VIP seating area while I was taken backstage. The 2 other recipients were already there, a novelist who'd written an acclaimed book about refugee experiences and a doctor who'd developed a new surgical technique for pediatric heart defects. Both were older than me, accomplished, gracious. We chatted nervously, sharing our excitement and anxiety. Then the coordinator came to take us through the program. The president would give opening remarks. Each of us would be called up individually, receive our medals, and have a brief moment to speak. Then a reception. Your guests are seated, the coordinator told me. Dr. James Morrison and Ms. Sarah Chen, correct? Correct. Perfect. And just to confirm, you only requested 2 passes? We had some people at the door claiming to be your family, but they weren't on the list. My heart rate spiked. What did they look like? An older couple and a young woman. They were quite insistent, but security turned them away. Was that correct? I smiled. Yeah. Yes, that was correct. The coordinator looked relieved. Good. We get this sometimes, people trying to claim connections to recipients for clout. Your actual guests are seated in Section A, Row 3. Through the gap in the backstage curtains, I could see the auditorium filling up. News cameras everywhere. The podium with the presidential seal. The empty chair where the president would sit. And near the entrance doors, I could see my family. Mom was in a formal dress I'd never seen before, probably bought specially for this. Dad looked uncomfortable in a suit. And Lisa was in designer everything. Where had that money come from? They were clustered together, talking to security, gesturing animatedly. I watched my mother pull out her phone, probably trying to call me. My phone buzzed. I silenced it without looking. They tried for another 20 minutes. At one point, Lisa actually started crying. Real tears. Impressive performance. But the security guards were unmoved. The Secret Service had been briefed. No one was getting in without proper credentials. Finally, defeated, they retreated to the lobby. I could see them through the glass doors, huddled together, probably trying to figure out what to do. That's when I saw Lisa pull out her phone and start recording a video. probably for Instagram, playing the devastated sister locked out of her sibling's big moment angle, building sympathy, creating a narrative where she was the victim. I pulled out my own phone and started recording her recording, just in case. 10 minutes to curtain, the coordinator called. I took a deep breath. This was it. The ceremony was perfect. The president's speech was eloquent, talking about the importance of recognizing young innovators, of investing in science, of celebrating achievements that would benefit all of humanity. The novelist went first, receiving her medal with grace and giving a short speech about the power of storytelling. The doctor went second, tearing up as he talked about the children whose lives would be saved. Then it was my turn. Our final recipient, the president said, his voice carrying through the packed auditorium and out to millions watching on television, is someone truly exceptional. At just 26 years old, Dr. Evelyn Thompson has developed quantum computing applications that will revolutionize how we understand and respond to climate change. Her algorithms can predict weather patterns, crop yields, and natural disasters with unprecedented accuracy. This isn't just brilliant science, it's science that will save lives. The applause was thunderous. I walked across the stage, my legs steady despite my racing heart. The president shook my hand, warm and firm, and placed the medal around my neck. It was heavy, solid, real. "Your family must be incredibly proud," he murmured. "The family I chose is here," I murmured back, glancing at where Dr. Morrison and Sarah were on their feet, clapping wildly. Something in my tone made him look at me more sharply, but then I was at the microphone, and the entire world was watching. "Thank you, Mr. President," I began. My voice was steady. "This award represents 10 years of work, of late nights and failed experiments and moments when I wanted to give up. But I didn't give up because I had people who believed in me." I paused, looking directly at the cameras. Somewhere in the lobby, I knew my family was watching on the monitors. "I want to talk about family," I continued. "Not the family you're born into, but the family you build, the people who show up, the people who see you." Behind me, I heard the president shift slightly. This wasn't the typical acceptance speech. "When I was 16, I won the state science fair. I told my parents the morning of the ceremony. They didn't come. When I was 23, I defended my PhD dissertation, the culmination of 7 years of work. They didn't come. There have been dozens of moments like this, moments that mattered to me, and they've missed all of them." The audience was silent now, rapt. I used to think it was my fault, that I wasn't important enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't enough, period. But I've realized it was never about me. Some people are incapable of seeing value in others, especially when that value doesn't directly benefit them. I looked at Dr. Morrison, who had tears streaming down his face. But I was lucky. I found people who did see me. My mentor, Dr. Morrison, who believed in my research when I was just an undergraduate with big ideas and no funding. My friend Sarah, who reminded me that kindness matters more than achievement. Colleagues who collaborated instead of competed. These are my real family. I held up the medal. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who ever bet on me when I looked like a losing prospect. To everyone who showed up when they didn't have to everyone who chose me. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. The president himself was clapping, nodding. As I walked back to my seat, I felt lighter than I had in years. Both lives. The reception afterward was surreal. Dozens of people wanted to talk to me. Scientists, politicians, journalists, representatives from tech companies. Everyone wanted to discuss my research, my future, potential collaborations. I was handed business cards, offered grants, invited to conferences around the world. Dr. Morrison stayed by my side, beaming with pride. Sarah was overwhelmed but delighted, taking pictures and marveling at everything. "Dr. Thompson," a young aide touched my elbow. "You have some people in the lobby who are claiming to be your family. They're asking to speak with you." "I know, Asin," I said. "Tell security to keep them there. I'll come down when I'm ready." The aide looked uncertain. "They're being somewhat disruptive, making a scene." "Then have security remove them from the premises if they can't behave," I said calmly. "They're not my guests, and they're not my responsibility." The aide nodded and hurried off. Sarah looked at me with concern. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said honestly. For the first time in my life, in both my lives, I'm perfect. I made them wait 2 hours. 2 hours of networking, of celebrating, of basking in the recognition I'd earned. 2 hours of being the center of attention for all the right reasons. Then finally, I went down to the lobby. They were clustered near the entrance, looking haggard and furious. Mom's makeup was smudged. Dad's tie was crooked. Lisa's designer dress looked wilted. Security had them corralled in a corner, away from the other guests. They saw me approaching, and Mom lunged forward, only to be stopped by a guard's arm. Evelyn, she called. Thank God! Tell them who we are. There's been a terrible mistake. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to see their faces clearly, but far enough that they couldn't touch me. Dr. Morrison and Sarah flanked me like bodyguards. There's no mistake, I said. Mom blinked. What? You're not on the guest list because I didn't invite you. Silence. Then Lisa exploded. Are you kidding me? We're your family. We drove 6 hours to be here for you. Did you? I asked. Or did you drive 6 hours because you saw the media coverage and realized this was a big deal? We wanted to support you, Dad said, and he actually looked hurt. That almost made me laugh. Support me? I repeated. Let's talk about support. Do you remember my state science fair, my PhD defense, my first publication? Any of the dozens of academic achievements I've had over the past decade? They exchanged glances. You didn't come to any of them, I continued. Not one. So forgive me if I don't believe that you suddenly care now that there are cameras involved. That's not fair, Mom said. We've always been proud of you. When did you last call me? I interrupted. Not to ask for money or help with Lisa's projects. When did you last call just to talk? To ask how I'm doing? Another silence. We're a family, Lisa tried. Families fight, but we're supposed to be there for each other. Families show up, I said, yeah. You didn't. You never have. I pulled out my phone and started swiping through photos. Here's me at the state science fair, alone. Here's me at my undergraduate graduation, alone. Here's me at my PhD defense, alone. I held up the phone so they could see. I have 10 years of documentation of you not showing up, of you prioritizing Lisa's needs over mine, of you treating me like an ATM and a servant, instead of a daughter and sister. Mom's face crumbled. We didn't realize. Yes, you did. You just didn't care. So what? Lisa snapped, her mask finally slipping. You're going to punish us forever? You're going to humiliate us on national television and not even let us in? I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm just not rewarding you anymore for treating me badly. There's a difference. We raised you, Dad said. We fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. The bare minimum required by law, I interrupted. You want credit for that? You want me to be grateful that you met the legal definition of parenting? You're being cruel, Mom whispered. I'm being honest, I corrected. Maybe for the first time in my life. You didn't love me. You loved what I could do for you, the chores I'd handle, the money I'd send, the way I made Lisa look better by comparison. But me, as a person, you never saw me. That's not true, Mom insisted, but her voice was weak. Then prove it. Tell me one thing about my research. One thing about what I actually do. They stared at me blankly. Tell me my favorite food, my favorite book, what I wanted to be when I grew up. Nothing. Tell me anything about me that isn't related to how I can serve you. Lisa was crying now, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry, frustrated tears, the tears of someone who'd lost something they'd taken for granted. I gave you 2 guest passes, I said. I gave them to people who actually care about me, people who showed up when you didn't. That's not cruelty. That's just consequences. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Lisa? I know what you tried to do in my first life. How you stole my research after I died, how you pretended to be me, took credit for my work. You Won't get the chance this time. Every piece of my research is copyrighted, patented, and locked down. If you try to touch it, I'll destroy you." Her face went white. "What are you talking about? What first life?" But I was already walking away, back toward the reception, back toward the people who actually mattered. Behind me, I heard Mom calling my name. I heard Dad trying to argue with security. I heard Lisa sobbing. I didn't look back. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The video of my acceptance speech went viral immediately. Scientist calls out absent family in award speech was trending within hours. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. I felt this in my soul. The family you choose, the family you're born into. Good for her for setting boundaries. But there was also attention on my family. Someone had caught video of them arguing with security, of Lisa's dramatic crying, of their failed attempts to get in. It was unflattering, to say the least. Then the deep dives started. Journalists, internet sleuths, people with too much time. They started digging into my background. They found my old blog posts about being overlooked, written years ago before I'd learned to be careful. They found the documentary from my state science fair showing me standing alone. They interviewed people from my hometown who remembered that poor Thompson girl who was always working while her sister partied. Someone even dug up my old college transcripts and compared them to Lisa's. The difference was stark. My mother tried to do damage control. She gave an interview to a local news station, playing the hurt parent. "We've always loved Evelyn. We're so proud of her. We don't understand why she said those things. Families have misunderstandings, but this is..." The interview was ripped apart online. People pointed out how vague she was, how she couldn't name a single specific achievement of mine, how her pride seemed conditional on my public success. Lisa tried to paint herself as the victim on Instagram. "My sister has changed. Fame has gone to her head. Our family isn't perfect, but we loved her. I'm heartbroken." The comments section destroyed her. People found photos she'd posted over the years, designer clothes, expensive vacations, nights out, while her bio said she was finding herself and exploring opportunities. Meanwhile, my own sparse social media showed years of academic grind. "Your sister was working 3 jobs while you were in Cancun," someone commented. "Sit down." The worst part, for them, came when someone leaked the financial records. I don't know who did it, though I suspect it was a journalist with good connections. But suddenly, it was public knowledge that my parents had spent tens of thousands supporting Lisa's lifestyle while I'd paid my own way through school, that they'd paid for Lisa's apartment, her car, her credit cards, while I'd sent them money during their hard times. The court of Batarakan, public opinion was merciless. Meanwhile, my life transformed completely. Within a week of the ceremony, I had offers from every major tech company, Google, some Microsoft, Apple. All of them wanted to license my research or hire me outright. Universities wanted me as faculty. Governments wanted to consult on climate policy. I started my own company instead. Thomson Climate Systems, with me as CEO and Dr. Morrison as Chief Research Officer. We kept the team small, selective. People who believed in the mission, not just the money. Sarah joined us as Director of Outreach. She'd been working in nonprofit management, and she was brilliant at translating complex science into accessible public messaging. The company's valuation hit $100 million in the first month. We had contracts with agricultural consortiums, disaster relief agencies, governments around the world. I bought a house. Not a mansion, nothing ostentatious, but a real home in a neighborhood I loved. It had a huge office with windows overlooking a garden, space for all my equipment, and guest rooms for the chosen family I was building. I adopted a dog, a mutt from the shelter with 3 legs and 1 eye, who'd been overlooked because she wasn't pretty enough. I named her Proof because she was living proof that value isn't about appearances. I was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. And my biological family watched it all from a distance, unable to touch any of it. 6 months after the ceremony, my father called. I was in my home office reviewing a grant proposal when his name flashed on my screen. I stared at it for a long moment, then answered. "Evelyn." His voice was rough. "We need to talk." "Do we?" He cleared his throat. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about what you said, about Everything. I waited. You were right, he said finally. We didn't see you. We didn't appreciate you. We took you for granted and we prioritized Lisa because she was needier, and that wasn't fair to you. It was the closest to an apology I'd ever heard from him. Okay, I said. I want to make it right. We want to make it right. Your mother and I, we want to. No. Silence. No, he repeated. No, I said firmly. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Genuinely. But I don't want to make it right. I don't want to rebuild this relationship. I'm happy without you, Dad. I'm successful without you. I'm loved without you. You don't add value to my life anymore. We're your family. You're people who share my DNA, I corrected. That's all. Family is earned, and you never bothered to earn it. Please, his voice cracked. Please, Evelyn. We know we messed up. Just give us a chance. I thought about it. About the years of hurt, the lifetime of being overlooked, about the death that had come from pushing myself to exhaustion while trying to earn love that was never coming. I gave you chances, I said. Hundreds of them. Every time I achieved something, every time I needed you, every time I hoped you might finally see me, those were all chances. You used them all up. What about Lisa? He tried. She's struggling. The publicity, the scrutiny. It's been hard on her. People are being cruel. People are being honest, I said. There's a difference. Lisa is experiencing consequences for the first time in her life. That's not cruelty, that's growth. She's your sister. Biologically, but she's not my family. None of you are. I could hear him crying now, soft and broken. Part of me felt bad. But it was a very small part, easily drowned out by the memory of every time they'd made me cry. I'm going to hang up now, I said gently. Please don't call again. I'm serious about the boundaries. I'm blocking this number. If you try to contact me through other means, I'll treat it as harassment. Evelyn. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up, blocked the number. Then I sat for a long time processing. The weird thing was, I didn't feel guilty. In my first life, I would have felt crushing guilt for cutting them off, for choosing my own well-being over their feelings. But now I just felt free. Proof padded into the room and rested her head on my knee. I scratched her ears. We're okay, I told her. We're better than okay. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. A year after the ceremony, I was invited to give a TED Talk. The topic was Choosing Your Family, the Science and Psychology of Healthy Relationships. It wasn't my usual subject matter, climate science, quantum computing, but the organizers had been intrigued by my acceptance speech and wanted me to expand on it. I almost said no. But then I thought about all the messages I'd received over the past year. Thousands of them, from people who'd been overlooked by their families, who'd felt like they weren't enough, who'd needed permission to choose themselves. I said yes. The talk was scheduled for April in Vancouver. The auditorium was packed. I stood backstage, nervous in a way I hadn't been since the presidential medal ceremony. You've got this, Sarah said, adjusting my lapel mic. She'd become my unofficial manager, handling my public appearances and media requests. What if I'm wrong? I asked. What if cutting off my family was just me being petty and vindictive? Then you're the most successful, happy, vindictive person I've ever met, Sarah said. But you're not wrong. You're boundaried. There's a difference. The lights dimmed. The announcer called my name. I walked out onto the red circle. I died when I was 26, I began. The audience went still. I was alone in my apartment, stressed to the point of cardiac arrest, and I'd been dead for 2 days before anyone noticed. The email confirming I'd won the Presidential Medal of Excellence was still glowing on my laptop screen. It was the happiest moment of my life, and I was alone for it. 3 days after my funeral, my sister held a press conference and claimed my research as her own. My parents stood beside her, proud. I paused, letting that sink in. Obviously, I'm not dead now, but I remember dying. I remember the crushing weight of never being enough. I remember sacrificing my health, my well being, my very life, trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I clicked to the next slide, a photo of me at the state science fair standing alone with my trophy. This is me at 16. I just won first place in the state. I told my parents that morning. They didn't come. Next slide, me at my undergraduate graduation. Alone. This is me at 22. My parents didn't come to this either. Next slide, me at my PhD defense. Alone. Busy. 23. Still waiting for them to show up. I clicked forward through a dozen more photos. Everyone showed me achieving something remarkable, and in every one, I was alone. For years, I thought this was normal. I thought I was asking too much. I thought if I just achieved enough, if I just became successful enough, if I just proved I was valuable enough, then they'd finally see me. Final slide. Me at the presidential medal ceremony standing between Dr. Morrison and Sarah, all three of us beaming. This is me at 26. This time, I invited people who'd actually shown up for me before, and look at the difference. I smiled at the audience. We talk a lot about blood being thicker than water, about family being everything, about how you should always forgive, always give second chances, always put family first, but here's what nobody tells you. Biology is not destiny. DNA is not obligation. Being related to someone doesn't mean you owe them unlimited access to your life, your success, or your peace of mind. The audience was dead silent, hanging on every word. I'm a scientist. I deal in evidence, and the evidence was overwhelming. My biological family made my life worse. They didn't support my dreams. They undermined them. They didn't celebrate my successes. They resented them. They didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them. I walked to the edge of the stage. So I made a choice. I chose myself. I chose people who chose me. I built a family based on mutual care, respect, and genuine affection. And my life transformed. I listed my achievements since cutting them off, the company, the contracts, the continued research, the happiness. None of that would have been possible if I'd kept trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. The energy I spent on them, the emotional labor, the hope, the hurt, I redirected toward people who actually valued me, and the return on that investment has been extraordinary. I paused, making sure I had their attention. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying everyone should cut off their families. Some families are wonderful. Some relationships can be healed. Some people do change, but, and this is crucial, you have to make decisions based on evidence, not hope. Not on what they might become or what they promise to be, but on what they actually are. I clicked to a slide with a simple equation. Healthy relationship equals consistent mutual support plus reciprocal effort plus genuine care. If a relationship doesn't meet these criteria consistently over time, it's not healthy. And you don't owe unhealthy relationships your loyalty just because of biology. The talk went on for another 10 minutes. I discussed the psychology of family trauma, the neuroscience of toxic stress, the surprising health benefits of chosen family networks. I cited studies, shared data, made the case that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. The TED Talk went viral. Within a week, it had 20 million views. Within a month, 50 million. The comments section was full of people sharing their own stories, their own moments of choosing themselves, their own journeys toward found family. I also got hate mail, lots of it. People telling me I was ungrateful, that I was cruel, that I was going to regret abandoning my family. Most of it came from older generations who couldn't conceive of family relationships being conditional. I didn't regret it. My company was thriving. Thomson Climate Systems had contracts in 47 countries. Our algorithms were being used to prevent famines, evacuate people ahead of natural disasters, optimize crop yields in challenging conditions. We were saving lives. I was dating someone. a kind, brilliant climate scientist who'd reached out after my TED Talk to collaborate on a project. His name was Marcus. Yes, the same Marcus from my first life who'd tried to warn me about Brandon. And he treated me like I was extraordinary without needing me to prove it constantly. My chosen family had expanded. Dr. Morrison's wife had become like a mother to me. Sarah had introduced me to her partner who'd become a close friend. I had a whole network of people who showed up for each other. I traveled, I published, I spoke at conferences and mentored young scientists who came from difficult backgrounds. I made sure they knew they weren't alone. I was happy in a way I'd never been in my first life. Then Lisa showed up at my office. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 18 months after the medal ceremony. My assistant buzzed me. Dr. Thompson, there's a Lisa Thompson here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says she's your sister. I closed my eyes. I'd known this was coming eventually. Send her in, I said. Lisa looked different. Thinner, older, tired. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple dress that had clearly seen better days. Her hair, once highlighted and styled to perfection, was pulled back in a basic ponytail. She stood in the doorway, hesitant. Hi, she said. Lisa, can I come in? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat perched on the edge like she might bolt at any moment. We looked at each other for a long moment. I'm not here to ask for money, she said finally, or a job, or anything, really. I just wanted to talk. Okay. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I waited. Not because I got caught, not because there were consequences, but because I genuinely didn't understand until recently how badly we treated you. She looked down at her hands. I've been in therapy, a lot of therapy, and I'm starting to see everything. Good, I said neutrally. Therapy is important. I was so jealous of you, she continued. My whole life you were smarter, more capable, more disciplined. Everything came easy to you, and I struggled with everything. So I told myself a story where you were lucky and I was just unlucky, where you didn't need support because you were naturally good at things. So it was fair that Mom and Dad focused on me. She laughed bitterly. But you weren't lucky. You worked your ass off. And you did need support. You needed it desperately. We just didn't give it to you because it was easier to tell ourselves you didn't need it than to admit we were failing you. I felt something shifting in my chest, but I wasn't sure what. What do you want from me, Lisa? Nothing, she said. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect us to be sisters again. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what we did, and I'm sorry. What happened? I asked. Why now? Why the sudden self-awareness? She smiled sadly. Rock bottom. Lost my apartment. Lost my boyfriend. Couldn't get a job because everyone who Googled me found the stories about you. I had to move back in with Mom and Dad and living with them every day, seeing how they still talk about you. Evelyn this, Evelyn that. If only Evelyn would forgive us. It made me realize we never actually saw you. We saw a tool, a resource, a comparison point, but not a person. How are they? I asked, surprising myself. Not good. Dad's business failed, the one he invested your money in. Mom's depressed. They're broke, actually. The house is in foreclosure. She looked at me carefully. I'm not telling you this to guilt you. You don't owe them anything. I just thought you might want to know. I did want to know, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, just neutral curiosity. And you? I asked. I'm working retail, living at home, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not living off other people. She stood. I should go. I just wanted to say sorry face to face for whatever that's worth. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth. That TED Talk changed my life. Hearing you lay it all out so clearly, it broke through the denial. So thank you for that. And congratulations on everything you've built. You deserve it. Then she was gone. I sat at my desk for a long time afterward, processing. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. Look how far they'd fallen. Look how high I'd risen. But I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Sarah poked her head in. You okay? Lisa was here. I know, I saw her leaving. Do you want to talk about it? I thought about it. She apologized. It seemed genuine. How do you feel about that? I don't know, I admitted. In my first life, I would have fallen all over myself to accept, to rebuild the relationship, to give another chance, but now I just feel neutral, like she's a stranger who did something wrong and apologized. It's nice that she apologized, but it doesn't change anything. That's healthy, Sarah said. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can acknowledge her apology without letting her back into your life. Is that cold? It's boundaried, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. 5 years after the ceremony, I was invited to give the commencement speech at MIT. Standing at the podium, looking out at the sea of graduating students, I thought about my first life, how I'd died at 26, exhausted and alone, how I'd never lived to see 30, much less achieve anything close to this. Now I was 31, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, holder of the Presidential Medal, and mentor to dozens of young scientists. I had a partner I loved, a chosen family that was rock solid, and a life that was so full of purpose and joy that sometimes I had to pinch myself to believe it was real. When I sat where you're sitting, I began, I believed that achievement was the same as worth. That if I just worked hard enough, accomplished enough, became successful enough, then I would finally be valuable, finally be loved. I paused, scanning the crowd. I was wrong. You are already valuable. Your worth isn't conditional on your achievements. Your value doesn't require external validation. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. I told them an abbreviated version of my story. The family that overlooked me, the death and rebirth, the choice to build something new. Some of you come from families who celebrate you, I said, who show up for you, who believe in you, who create space for you to thrive. Cherish them, protect those relationships. They're rare and precious. I looked at a few faces in the crowd who weren't smiling, who looked like they were barely holding it together. But some of you come from families who don't see you, who undermine you, who compete with you, who make you feel small. And I want you to know, you are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to build new families. You are allowed to set boundaries with blood relatives. You are allowed to protect your peace, your joy, your well-being, even if it means disappointing people who share your DNA. The applause started building. Success without well-being is just another form of failure. Achievement without joy is just socially acceptable suffering. Don't make my mistake. Don't work yourself to death trying to earn love from people who aren't capable of giving it. Don't sacrifice your health, your happiness, your very life at the altar of other people's expectations. I gripped the podium. Choose people who choose you. Build relationships based on mutual respect. Protect your energy like the precious resource it is. And remember, the family you build can be even stronger than the family you're born into. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Epilogue. 10 years after the medal, I'm 36 now. Thomson Climate Systems has changed the world. Our algorithms are used by governments worldwide. We've prevented famines, saved thousands of lives, revolutionized agricultural planning. The company is worth $15 billion. But that's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is the research lab we built that offers full scholarships to promising students from difficult backgrounds. It's named the Morrison Chen Scholars Program, after the 2 people who saw me first. What makes me happy is the nonprofit Sarah runs, connecting young people from abusive families with resources, therapy, and chosen family networks. What makes me happy is coming home to Marcus and Proof, to the house we bought together, to the life we've built based on mutual respect and genuine love. What makes me happy is the wall in my office, not covered with awards, though there are many, but with photos. Photos of me surrounded by people who chose me, who show up for me, who celebrate me. My real family. I've heard through the grapevine that my mother and father live in a small apartment now, that Lisa is still working retail, still in therapy, slowly rebuilding a life based on her own merits instead of borrowed glory. I hope she succeeds, I genuinely do. But I don't need to be part of that journey. I sent them one last thing, about a year ago, a simple card that said, I forgive you, not because you've earned it, but because I deserve peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. I wish you well, but I wish it from a distance. Please respect my boundaries. Please don't contact me again. They haven't. I think they finally understand. Sometimes I think about my first life, the lonely death, the stolen research, the family that profited from my corpse. It feels like a nightmare now, distant and unreal. This life, this beautiful, full, joyous life, this is real. I won. Not because I defeated them, but because I chose myself. I built something they can't touch, something they didn't contribute to, something that's entirely mine. Last week, Dr. Morrison retired. At his party, he pulled me aside. I'm so proud of you, he said, tears in his eyes. Not for your achievements, though those are remarkable, but for choosing yourself, for building this beautiful life, for being brave enough to let go of people who couldn't see your worth. I learned from the best, I said, hugging him. You saw me when nobody else did. You taught me that I was worth seeing. You taught yourself that, he corrected. I just held up a mirror. As I looked around the party, at Sarah and her wife, at Marcus talking animatedly with colleagues, at the young scholars from our program, at this huge, beautiful, chosen family. I felt a profound gratitude. Not for the second chance at life, though that was remarkable, but for the wisdom to use it differently. In my first life, I died trying to earn love from people who couldn't give it. In this life, I learned to accept love from people who could. That's made all the difference.